everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, checking in with a weekly garden tour. We are back to kind of normal winter weather temperatures, and as you can see in my background, the Prunus autumnalis are in full glorious bloom. And I've actually gotten quite a lot accomplished this week in the garden, so I can't wait to take you on a tour. Well, the backyard highlights definitely are the Prunus autumnalis. There's Matsubura Red. Over here is Josephine, and Pink Panther has started to bloom as well. So all of the Prunus autumnalis in my collection are basically in full flower now, third week of January. And the fragrance is so remarkable. It's just like big red gum hanging in the air all over the place. Now, ground plane wise, not a whole lot new to report. The ranunculus brazen hussy is starting to bloom. And yes, that can be somewhat invasive. So what I do is I pluck the flowers off and use them in floating flower arrangements, and that prevents them from setting seed. Not a lot of action with the direct sown seed in this bed. Everything's just kind of like on pause, but I have faith that it'll all come together soon. The Edgeworthia here, this is Snow Cream. Excited to show, starting to have some yellow flowers start to open. So the countdown is officially on. I haven't looked at the one by the garage, so we'll all get to see that together. Also noticed that this Arnold Promise Hamamalis is starting to show some flowers, which is quite early. This is usually blooming in March for me. You can see there's some petals showing, not really producing any fragrance yet, but opening earlier than usual this year. Walking into the woodland, I did actually manage to do a little bit of cleanup, cut back in here. You can see Irrational Exuberance Camellia is continuing to flower, as is Igawa Four Seasons. Lots of flower buds and, you know, beautiful blooms that are open. And the one that I never say correctly is also really starting to open. So everything is basically fully recovered since the holiday cold snap. You can see Crimson Candles is way ahead of schedule. Definitely already starting to flower. And I did get the hellebore foliage cut back, and you can see how far along these hellebores are. These are a neat double flower form. I have a couple different varieties planted in here. As we walk into this area of the woods, you can see more Edgeworthia flowers starting to open, and more hellebores. And, you know, to prevent the hellebores from being invasive and setting seed, I collect all of the open flowers and put them in floating flower arrangements as well. Got a couple of the final blooms on Camellia Brie. Sweet little single abundantly blooming pink form named for me. All right, so if the Edgeworthias out in the garden are blooming, that means the one that planted itself over here on the side of the garage is definitely starting to flower. So let's see. Such an exciting time of year. Oh yeah, lots of blooms starting to fully open. Oh, the fragrance, you guys. I wish smell-o-vision existed. The fragrance of Edgeworthia truly is one of the greatest things on the planet. Well, it looks like I'm gonna have a lot of fun collecting these blooms to float in arrangements so that I can enjoy them every single time I walk out my kitchen door. You can see great germination here. I believe this was all sown right around winter solstice. So you know, just before the holidays. And I'm so relieved to see all of these seeds germinating, since so many that were sown earlier in the year ended up dying because of the holiday freeze. So now I'm going to be amending the information I share with everybody. Hopefully these will still bloom on time. And the reason for my mid-May goal is because the spring open garden is scheduled for the Saturday of Mother's Day weekend. That is Saturday, May 13th from noon to 4 p.m. And more information can be found on my website, breegrows.com. I'm really excited to announce that I am going to go ahead and make it a huge native plant sale. One time only. I am not a nursery. There will not be other opportunities for you to swing by and pick up plants from me. So it's a spring open garden only. I am not trying to start a nursery, by the way. I just am buying plants to install next door, and I'm going to buy some extras so I can offer them for sale to people who visit, who have an interest in growing some of these same plants as me, but are having difficulty locating them because unfortunately a lot of these native plants just aren't available at garden centers, which is completely absurd but accurate. So mark your calendars, make some plans to attend, and I'm really excited as I get the orders placed to have a plant list of what will be available at the open garden. So be sure to continue checking in and subscribe so that you'll get all these updates. Now look at that Josephine in full bloom, the gorgeous Carolina blue sky behind it. These flowers, there's just nothing prettier, I swear. I love Prunus mumes so much. I do wish they were more readily available, so if you ever find one, buy it. Don't hesitate. You will not regret having this gorgeous tree brighten up a January day. Well, I don't want to spoil the surprise for tomorrow's video, but I did get in here and I cut back the bananas that were completely melted to the ground, which in past years hasn't actually been what's happened to them. That was from the holiday freeze. My main motivation was to make sure I got the walkway cleared, because you can see there's tons of self-sown poppies, and I didn't want those to have any sort of damage from being covered by the fallen banana stalks. Mowing down the phlox is high on my priority list, and I was kind of hoping to do it today, and I still might. I haven't gotten to it yet. Everything in the fire pit's looking great. The cabbages are growing really well. The grains, bright and cheerful. All of the pots here look wonderful. I definitely think covering the pots with the burlap sacks on a tomato cage was a really good decision, and super easy. You see, I still have them staged there in case we have a sudden cold snap. And everything in the back porch feed tank bed is looking good. It's amazing how just this little bit of cattle fence has made a huge difference in the deer browsing. So you can see the barley is starting to recover. It's actually starting to grow up again. I'm also, making sure that I'm keeping it sprayed with deer deterrent, with deer repellent, I should say. But just the little bit of cattle fence, which is really not that noticeable, really does make a huge difference. And I say that because sometimes people think, you have to put up a huge fence and all this, and I just don't have the money to spend on a giant deer fence for this whole property. So I've got to do it on the cheap. And, small cattle fence panels that you can cut to size. You buy these at Tractor Supply and you can use them over and over again. I really do think is a more economical and more reasonable option for normal people like me who don't have endless budgets. Now, more poppy seed updates here in this feed tank. You can see the poppies are doing really well. The lettuce is doing great. And look at all the tulips that are emerging out of here. This is one of the ways I like to grow. I do love tulips, I'll confess that. I know they're, you know, they're not always reliably hardy in the southeast. They don't perennialize. The voles love to eat them, but this is the only place I'm growing tulips this year. I think I may have tossed some in some other pots too. But it brings me happiness, and that's what matters. If you like tulips, grow some tulips, you know. And I recommend doing them in pots just because at least you know the voles aren't going to get into that, and they're not going to eat those bulbs, so you'll actually get some blooms. And here is an update on the winter interest window box that Aiden and I planted probably just over 2 weeks ago. You can see the wheat is germinating in mass. It looks awesome. I think this is going to be really, really cool. You know, really all winter and spring. It's going to give me something to look out at from my kitchen window. Just showing off the cutest little cat in the whole universe. He has very good self-esteem. As we come up to the driveway bed, everything's looking great. These pots are so beautiful. You know, in part, they're in a very protected location. They're also super easy to water because the hose is right there. And you can see this week's floating flower arrangements. I did one in all violas. All of these violas came from the wall. And this one is sort of a mix of hellebores and Prunus mumes and camellias. You can see that brazen hussy ranunculus and some of the Jasminum nudiflorum. The fresh seed that I sowed in the bottom here hasn't germinated yet, but I bet by next week it will. And all of these grains are recovering pretty well from that holiday freeze. You can see this pot of rye is just on fire. It's totally growing out, and all of the violas have completely bounced back. And the pots across the front porch are looking good. Well, hopefully you watched yesterday's video where I showed the process of getting this bed finally weeded and reseeded for the season. I'm really excited to have it done. Obviously, none of the seeds have germinated yet, but maybe by next week we'll start to see some fresh, you know, leafy greens starting to emerge from the ground plane. The wave is looking awesome. All the greens there are doing well. And of course, you can see Bonita, Prunus mume. This was the earliest to bloom. And it's already starting to shed some of its petals, but it still looks so beautiful. And then down the line, you can really see Bridal Veil, the weeping white variety of Prunus mume, looking great. They're such magnificent flowers. And they smell so good, and they are just wonderful to bring inside the house. It's definitely a really, really special time of the year. And as we walk out to the big shrub border here that's along the street, you can really see now that the Lonicera, the winter honeysuckle, is in full bloom. I mean, the fragrance is so amazing. Oh gosh, I wish Smell-O-Vision existed for this winter tour today. These blooms are just packed with like a kind of a lemony, wonderful scent. And behind it, you can see that Prunus subhirtilla variety Autumnalis rosea is starting to open up more blooms. And this definitely got damaged from the holiday freeze, but it's recovering pretty well. It's not as densely flowering as Prunus mume, but it's certainly a tree that I wouldn't want to not have in my home collection. And just a quick pan of the front borders here. I swear, the green from those grains, it's just everything that this Michigander needs in the wintertime, because of course our centipede turf is totally dormant at this time of year. And I just love the bright green flush of the winter active grains against the beige of the traditional grass. But now for the really exciting reveal. I can't believe how much progress we made this week on the Carolina Garden House native shrub border. And I also cannot believe how many neighbors have like actively participated, like on purpose, like they wanted to come and help. And it really shows the power of gardening, and gardening in your front yard, so that you're not hiding it from everybody. You're putting it out there for everyone to see. And well, I am just endlessly grateful for everyone who's participated and everyone who has commented on the videos and you know, shared enthusiasm for this project. We have, you know, we're going to continue planting, but definitely phase 1 is in, and I'm super excited to have gotten this ground aged pine bark, which is basically gold in 2023. It's a really difficult thing to find because there's a lot of different industries using it now. I mean, it used to be you could find ground aged pine bark at Lowe's and Home Depot, but those days are gone. So if you do find it, it's just like a Prunus mume. If you can find ground aged pine bark, buy it in bulk. I'm actually going to see if Nick, my neighbor who brought me this, could grab another 10 yards, because he has a dump trailer, and stash it in the backyard here so that I just have it as a resource. So as we continue to build beds, I'll have it to use. So into the Carolina Garden House, had some questions about, like, did we overplant shrubs in the bulb areas? No, we didn't. We kept the bulb areas planted with herbaceous things. These are ornamental grasses, so the bulbs will just come right through. They are actively growing, so they should be popping their heads out pretty soon. You can see we mulched this entire bed, and we didn't do it super deep, but I think we put it maybe an inch or two. Let's see. Yeah, really probably just an inch, because you can see the soil is right there. And we'll probably add more once we get the herbaceous landscape plugs installed. But I'm just getting those ordered now, and I'm really excited for that process, and I'll definitely be posting lots of videos about that. That way, long term, you don't really see the mulch at all. I'm very happy though to have this mulch, specifically the ground aged pine bark, for the purposes of helping acidify the soil. Now you can see in this bed where we overseeded poppies and cottage garden things, we didn't mulch the whole thing, but just to make it look like we hadn't forgotten it, we did mulch kind of a foot edge around it. And I think that really helps define that, yes, this is a bed that is here on purpose, right? Mulch always makes everything look a little more purposeful. And so we've still got a good mulch pile left that, you know, will ultimately be used to go in here. And then of course I've got the utility bed that I keep rethinking the plants, and someone made the great comment of wax myrtle in here. I think that's a absolute must. I don't have any wax myrtle in these beds yet, and that's a great plant for screening. You know, the main thing is I don't want to see the green utility box, but I can't plant this bed until 811 utility folks come out to mark the lines. So just sort of on pause with this bed for now, and that'll give me the opportunity to get a couple of good evergreens to go into this space. And an update here in the herbaceous border. I haven't looked for a few days, so let's see. How are the seedlings doing? Oh, they're doing great, you guys. This is so awesome. Okay, so what we have are Reese poppies, that little right there to get this to to focus. There we go. And then these are the California poppies. And you can see how their foliage is forked. And that's like a good distinction. And really good ground plane coverage, probably denser than necessary, but go big or go home, right? And the pots here at the Carolina Garden House are doing really well. The grains are just amazing. And you can see in this really protected zone, this hybrid, this is more like a pansy, is doing much better here than it is in the wall next door. And look at the broccolis. These were uncovered during the holiday freeze where we got to 11 degrees. So that definitely shows you the power of the microclimate here, house adjacent, east facing with concrete. Makes a big difference, and you can take advantage of those little special parts, you know, of patios and things to really zone bend. And as I make my way along this side of the fence, I really can't believe how amazing this Jasminum nudiflorum has been this year. I think it's always amazing, but I'm appreciating it more than ever. It's just a powerhouse of bloom the entire month of January. I don't care that it's even taking up a little more space than I had really intended it to. I love how it's just sort of naturalized through the tea olive here. I mean, look, there's Jasminum blooms all the way up there. That's like 10 foot in the air. And here, the spring cottage garden plants are doing really well. Again, a good mix of things. We've got poppies. I think these are all Reese poppies here. Larkspur, of course, a clump of wheat. We've got bachelor buttons coming right here. We've got the elephant garlic that's definitely doing really well. An absolutely enormous stand of larkspur. This is all self-sown. And I haven't weeded in here. I will. I will. This will be on my list. Hopefully this week I'll get to this bed. And then along here, you can see this elephant garlic was planted earlier. It showed some signs of stress from the holiday freeze, but it's certainly growing out of that. And I'm perplexed that this section doesn't have better seed germination. This is an area that had a lot of the stuff die from the holiday freeze, but Abby and I did re-sow it. I don't see any of those seedlings germinating yet. I do see a fair amount of where cats have been digging through here. And a quick update on the soil cube bags that Abby and I planted about 3 weeks ago. Not only are the grains germinating, but the poppies are germinating. You can see the tiny poppy seeds there. Look at all the poppies in here. Again, this is the absolute easiest way to grow poppies. Just put them directly in a soil cube bag. I mean, look at that germination. Just make sure you put holes in the bag. That's the most critical component. And super happy these bags also germinating, even though they're getting a lot more shade. Gosh, is there just anything more exciting than to see poppies germinating? I don't think so. This is sort of what I live for at this time of year. And I'll give you an update from these pots. You can see Cubby is enjoying some sun time. And I sowed poppies in here not quite 2 weeks ago to sort of replace the things that died. I don't see any germination yet. This pot, which was covered, is doing great. This is a mix of different kale. And same thing here. You know, these pots had germinated really, really well, and you can see not so much left from the holiday freeze, but I did overseed these. So hopefully by next week's tour, I'll have some new poppy seedlings to show off. Well, Cubby and I are wishing you all the very best this week. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I look forward to sharing another update. Have a great day, everybody, and happy gardening.